This is Eddie, Dora's husband. And thinking about our time in Mexico, there's one thing that stood out real big, or three things that I can tell about that involved Mary Lou and some of the rest of us, of course. And one of them was one night as we were coming back down the muddy road from the revival that was being held at Sardanejos, which is the little village that Brother Pipes had went down and helped build a tabernacle with a metal roof. And I believe I'm right. And anyway, it was really nice for them. Of course, no electricity. And although they did have a generator that they could use, but this particular night they had those gasoline lanterns hanging around the walls. And when the service was over, it must have been about 1 o'clock in the morning. And there was people there that had walked several miles and further than we did to get to that meeting. But it was probably about 2 miles that we had to walk down this muddy road where the city had been working on putting in a bridge or two between the main road and the village. And so we were walking back one night. I remember I always kind of took to the little children, and they did me, and I acted silly with them. And so while we were walking, I can remember singing little songs, and then I'd have them to sing one, and I'd try to mimic them, and I couldn't say their words, but I could say, and they would get so tickled, and we just had a big time. But anyway, this particular night we left there, some carrying those lanterns, coming down that long muddy road. We came up on a drunk that was passed out at the side of the road. And we had prayer, of course, but now what are we going to do with him? He can't just lay out here in this rain. And one said one thing and one another. One said, well, this is the man that made us move our fence around from our tabernacle up there between, they said we'd put it on the wrong property line. And some was upset at him, and one wanted to do something and one another. And I remember asking Mary Lou, where does this man live? And she said, way beyond Sardanejos, way up that mountain. And I said, is the road, there a trail up there? Yes. I said, all right, y'all go on. I'm taking him back up there. Well, Mary Lou, she said, I'll go with you. I get blessed telling about it. But we started back up the road, back up to the village. By that time, we was probably, I don't know, we must have been a half a mile away from the village. And as we approached the village, Mary Lou, she said, there's a family that lives right here where that old dump truck is. As far as I know, that's the only machinery that the village owned. I didn't see any other. But that old truck was sitting in their backyard, and like I say, it was pouring down rain. And she said, let's just put him back under that truck. I might add, too, that we had to literally hold him up and walk him along. And he was upset because he didn't want no gringo helping him. He could do it. And we just bless him and come on now, you know, you can't do it. And we talked to him, and we got him up to that old truck, and he was pleased to get there. And he crawled back under that truck and was curled up when we left. Mary Lou said, now they'll find him in the morning and he'll be sober enough to go home. So we went back down the road, and I can't remember exactly if it was the same night or if it was a different night, but this particular night that I want to tell you about now, another occasion, it may have been the same one, because when we got back down to the Mary Lou's truck where she left it, she had that camper on the back, and there was always 10 or 11 or 12 little people crowded in that little camper shell on the back. It was kind of a tall shell, so it wasn't one like you had to just crawl in. But anyway, we got down there, and people was standing around the truck that had rode with her, and the truck was locked, and they'd been standing there in the rain waiting on us. And Mary Lou figured out, her or one of the others figured out a way how to open the back door to the camper, and let all the little people crawl in that could. And then Mary Lou and Dora Fern and I got into the cab, and I was sitting in the driver's seat, and if I'm not mistaken, Dora Fern was on the other side and was in the middle, and Mary Lou was on the other side. And she said, she had said she didn't have the key, that I think Marcia had taken her purse with her and went on with these people and caught a ride on back to Yetta, isn't that the name of the town? And so there we sat in the darkness, it pouring down rain. And of course we prayed, and I was sitting there under that wheel. Is a Ford truck. It was an old truck. It wasn't an old truck at the time, but it did have the key on the dash that you turn the key on and keep turning, and it would start. And so I'm sitting there thinking, and I run my hand up behind the dash, and I felt this coupling like thing that had a bunch of wires run into it, and I wiggled it a little bit, and it came unplugged, and that was behind the switch. So I pulled it down underneath and had them to turn the flashlight on, and I was looking at the end of this socket that had a whole bunch of little holes in it for different wires for different things, like the dash lights and dome light, I suppose, and a whole bunch of stuff. But I also knew that there was at least 4 wires that would work. So I said, one of you all got a bobby pin? Yes. I don't know which one handed to me, Mary Lou or Dora Fern, but I cleaned the little stuff off the end to make it bare, and parted it just enough that I could stick one of them ends of that bobby pin in one of those holes, and then I just spread it out a little bit over to another hole, and mind you, I had no idea which hole went to what, but I thought, well, there's got to be 2 of these that turns the switch on. There's got to be 2 more that will start it. And I took that first bobby pin, and you talk about God answering prayer. I took that bobby pin, and I poked one side of it in one hole and the other side of it in another hole. And it's just like a voice said, now you've turned the switch on, now start it. And so I said, give me another bobby pin. And one of them did. I did the same thing. I put one piece into the one hole, and I plugged it into the other hole, another hole, and it started. It started. So we was able to drive through the rain and on down, and I can't remember if we met Marcia and the rest of them coming back. But anyway, we drove down that rest of that road and to the highway, and as I remember, we did meet some of the others as coming back that realized what had happened, why we was way behind. So that was one story. It wound up good.